In this course, we have often represented values of quantities or values of changing quantities using line segments. We will continue this way of representing quantities as a way to help us think about the underlying mathematics in Module 4. An example of the types of problems we have completed could be as follows. Imagine driving on a trip that is 340 miles long. We can represent this trip using a line segment. Then we can consider how far we have traveled when we have gone, say, 1/4 of the distance of the entire trip. We can represent this distance using a line segment that is 1/4 as large as the entire trip. The number we must multiply 340 times in order to determine the distance of the first 1/4 of the trip is going to be the number 1/4. So 340 times 1/4 is 85 miles. This is the distance of the first portion of the trip measured in miles. We can also determine the number of miles we have left to drive because we have 3/4 of the trip left to go. We can represent this distance using a line segment that is 3/4 times as large as the entire trip, and determine that distance remaining by multiplying 3/4 times 340 miles, or 255 miles. What do you notice about the relationship between the fractions 1/4 and 3/4 in this problem? How are these fractions related to the entire trip that you took? Question 1 in Module 4 Investigation 1 asks you to apply this kind of thinking to your understanding of percentages. Remember that we can think of the word percent as meaning per 100. So 1% of the value of a quantity would be 1/100th times as large as the given value of the quantity. As you complete the problems in questions 1 and 2, it will be important for you to reason with the numbers in both their fraction form and their decimal form. Reasoning with fractions is a key strategy to use while working and thinking throughout this module. For example, we can think of 25% as either 0.25 in its decimal form or 25 divided by 100 in its fraction form. We can use whichever is most useful for us in the situation that we are thinking about. Also, remember that if we have 25% of the value of the quantity, then 75% of the quantity remains because the percentages, in order to have the entire amount, must add to 100%. Question 3 asks us to consider how many times as large the value of one quantity is when compared to the value of another quantity. We can answer question 3 by reasoning in a number of ways. One way of reasoning that will prove very useful as we continue to move forward is to consider what number we must multiply the value of one quantity by in order to determine the value of another quantity. For example, what number must I multiply 5 by in order to get 7? This question is strictly computational, and we can answer it by understanding fraction multiplication. 5 times 7/5 equals 7. This mathematics tells us that 7 is 7/5 times as large as 5. Reasoning with this understanding of fractions will help you as you answer question 3. Submit your answers to all parts of questions 1, 2, and 3 in Module 4 Investigation 1 using your instructor's preferred method by the time and date that your instructor has identified.